Hello everybody and welcome to our YouTube character profile upload for Michelle Connor, played by Kim Marsh. Oh, it's been a while since we've talked about her on the podcast, isn't it? But this isn't the podcast, this is YouTube, so it's different. This is, there's going to be two parts to this one because we originally profiled Michelle back in 2016 for episode 194 of Conversation Street. Little did we know, dare we had even hoped back then, that only a few years later she'd be clopping off the cobbles for good. And now we're a few years out of Michelle time, aren't we?
Yeah.
We missing her?
Yeah.
Don't you big lie, we're not. Anyway, so we thought we'd upload the old character profile and then stick something new on the end to update it so we get her full, final, and definitely not coming back picture for the last few years. So what you'll hear next is that original discussion that we have about half an hour or so of chatting about what she had been getting up to that point. Then we managed to waffle on for another 20 minutes or so just about general Michelle feelings and opinions.
Like us.
We have them. And then we'll be back after that to update you on the final years. So buckle yourselves in because there is quite a lot to say about Michelle. So I hope you enjoy it. Here is us in episode 194 to kick things off. Okay, it is character profile time, and I think this is the last long-term current character that we haven't done a character profile on. So it's the end of an era, and have we left the best till last, Gemma?
No.
It's Michelle.
Ooh. Michelle Connor.
Ooh, Michelle Connor. She's this week, as we said, celebrating her decade on the show. So we're going to be running down and
celebrating the golden era of Connors.
Yes, exactly. So she was born on the 21st of April 1976 to Barry and Helen Connor. She had two brothers, Paul and Liam, sadly no longer with us. And in 2015, she got married to Steve. Children. We must go down this route, but she's got two children, but she's only got one really, and she's not adopted, and blah blah. Basically, no, let's get there when we get there, I think. But she has got a child. She
or
first,
two.
or two, or no, who knows? She first appeared on the 3rd of April 2006 in Corrie, and she's been
in it.
Yes,
what? For over 10 years now.
Over 10 years now, just over
almost
10 years.
Almost exactly.
Yes, and she's been in 1,146 episodes, which puts her at the 48th most featured character on the show, which is pretty high. And she's actually going to be overtaking Ina Sharples soon, assuming that she's in a full run of episodes next week. I think she's going to overtake number of appearances that Ina's had, which is a bit shocking. And she is played by Kim Marsh. Now, Kim...
He spells her name with a Y.
That's a cool way of spelling Kim, obviously. Now, Kim, I knew her before Coronation Street because she'd
Good
been...
friends, weren't you?
No, sadly not. She was on Pop Stars. That's where she first shot to relative fame in the UK. Well, I mean, she was... I'll say that. She was one of the most famous 15-minute celebrities that we'd had back at the time, because Pop Stars was the precursor to... X Factor and American Idol, Britain's Got Talent, and all this string of Saturday night TV talent shows we had that we have now. But Pop Stars was. I don't think Simon Cowell was involved in it, but it was his mate Simon Fuller, I think, that maybe organised it. Or maybe it wasn't, I don't even know. But anyway, it wasn't like a live show, people performing in front of an audience. It was much more of a documentary of us auditioning some aspiring pop stars and then putting them together. And Kim was one of the people that eventually got put into the band. And that this band was Hearsay. And...
Great band.
They were big for about 2 singles. They had I did actually like Pure and Simple, their first song. Did you like it?
How does it
Pure
go?
And simple,
no, I don't like it.
I'll be there for you.
No, I don't. No.
And then they did a second single. I can't remember what that one went. And they kind of fizzled out after 3 or 4 singles, sadly. And Kim was one of her most famous moments in the Pop Stars TV show was when Nasty Nigel, who was the kind of the main, the Simon, yeah, exactly, told her that she'd got fat over Christmas and she needed to lose weight. So that was a bit harsh because she wasn't actually that. Well, she was like size 12
or something. What do you mean she wasn't actually that fat?
No, she wasn't fat. She wasn't fat. She was size 12, and he said, "Oh, the goose has put on a bit of fat over Christmas," and this kind of stayed with her, and it kind of gave her bad body image issues for a long time.
Well, the thing is, if you're in the entertainment industry, yes, a size 12 is too fat. Like 10 is the maximum size you can get away with before people start putting you in magazines.
It's so wrong, isn't it?
Oh, look at this picture of her in a bikini.
Big circle around this bit of a
when is she going to bring
cellulite.
out her celebrity weight loss DVD?
Well, she'd also had children as well by this point, and she, I think there was some kind of controversy about her not mentioning her children before she went on the Pop Stars programme, and she said, well, we were never asked whether we had any children or not. I wasn't trying to hide it. But anyway, she was a bit of a character in it. But as I said, the band very much flopped after the first hit single was like the best-selling single ever in the UK because it was on the back of this new style TV show. But yeah, with a couple of years, it had turned into nothing. And we later saw her pop up on TV in 2006 when she was given a cameo role in Corrie, and then joined more permanently. And at the time she said, if anyone had told me I'd end up starring in Coronation Street one day, I'd have laughed and told them to shut up. That sounds a bit like Michelle, doesn't it? Just shut up.
Shut up. And I would have folded my arms at them.
I've always said this would be my dream job. My mum has watched the show for years and I've grown up with it. So she first appeared, like I said, in 2006, and they kind of, because she was an ex-pop star, they kind of incorporated this into her character a bit, and she was a singer singing in... She auditioned to be in Vernon's band, and he was Liz's squeeze at the time. And Liz was utterly jealous of this sexy young girl coming in a part of Vernon's life, and she was convinced that she was trying to get her claws into him. But actually, it just turned out they were secretly arranging for him to rent a flat for him and Liz to live in, but not really. Well, they were doing that, but he did fancy her anyway, and he was a bit creepy, wasn't he, Vernon?
It was like someone's creepy uncle.
Yeah, I'm glad that didn't last for long.
Why are uncles all creepy?
My
What's
uncle's
wrong with
perfectly
aunts?
nice. What's wrong with yours?
What's wrong with aunts? Why can't they keep him in check?
Before long, Michelle was a barmaid at the Rovers, and she'd moved her family onto the street. So she was the start of the Connor invasion on the street, because we had son Ryan that came in, we had Liam, we had Paul. Paul was married to Carla, and obviously 10 years ago was when Mike Baldwin died as well. So they needed somebody to come in and properly take over the factory after the other Baldwins disappeared. So Vernon started flirting with Michelle, and she ended up humiliating him by pretending to reciprocate his feelings, and then she revealed the truth in front of everyone in the Rovers. Liz fired Michelle, but she had a job back before long. Now the romance with Steve was blossoming way back then, because, well, it was almost going to, but it was a bit of a false start, because she asked Steve out on a date, but then he stood her up. So she started seeing a millionaire, Sonny Dillon, and
Brilliant.
that's probably the best
Highlight.
choice to go for, isn't it?
I would
Steve McDonald or a millionaire.
Millionaire.
What if you found out that this millionaire was actually bisexual and used to date Sean and was recently spotted kissing him again? Because
I
that's
would
what happened.
say, if only I'd found this out after we had got married and I could have taken half of your things.
Yeah, like she probably thought, I'll just keep quiet about it for
I
a
would
little
have
bit
kept
longer.
quiet about it. That would have been the best revenge on a millionaire. Marry him and take half of his stuff.
Yeah, but no, she didn't. She dumped him.
That's because she's got morals.
Now, we had a bit of backstory for Michelle this year as well, because Ryan, her son, we'll call him that for now, was the son of Dean, who was Michelle's ex-boyfriend, not Will. And he was killed in a car crash. And it turned out in 2007 that Paul, her brother, was the one that was driving the car when Dean was killed. So, shocking family revelations there. But it turned out okay in the end anyway, because Paul himself was the victim of a car crash in June that year. So it was a bit of karma, maybe. I don't know.
He died.
He died, and Leanne was in the boot of the car, but she's fine because she was being his prostitute at the time.
Yes.
As we always like to remember to bring up on this podcast. Steve and Michelle started a relationship.
Nothing wrong with being a prostitute. It's a good job.
But it's illegal in France now, isn't it? Did you see that?
Is it illegal in France?
Yeah, they made it illegal this week.
See, a lot of people don't realise it's not illegal in this country.
I don't know what the rules for it are.
You're just not allowed to solicit, and you're not allowed to.
Oh, yeah, no, it's
have sex in a brothel.
As far as I know, this week in France it was made illegal to pay for sex or something like that.
Yeah, but
anyway.
that doesn't mean it's illegal to take money for having sex.
Oh well, I don't know what the wording of it is. Anyway, mystery at the end of the year. Ryan started getting followed by a man in a car.
What?
I know. And so Liam ended up following him to a house. And then when Michelle opened the door, it was the spitting image of Dean, her ex-boyfriend. It was Alex Neeson. And she's like, hang on a minute, you look very much like the guy that I used to go out with. And what do you know? Alex and Ryan were swapped as babies. And this is one of those storylines that I think Coronation Street wishes it could forget.
It has forgotten it. It never likes to bring it up.
It doesn't, does it? So, I can't remember that much about it. But yeah, basically, for some reason, there was a bit of a mix-up at the hospital when Alex and Ryan were born, and Michelle ended up taking the wrong baby home. And,
yeah, but they all look the same. I mean, what's the problem?
Babies all do look the same, don't they? They all have wrinkled prunes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just nature and nurture, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this was obviously quite big news at the time, and
news to Michelle.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, early 2008, Alex started hanging around Coronation Street because he wanted to get to know his real mum a bit better, and he wasn't shy about telling everyone that Michelle was his real mum. I think she might have wanted to keep it a secret. And he was arrested for shoplifting, and he told the police, "Oh yeah, I live over at the Rovers." And he ended up actually living in the Rovers for a bit as well because he wanted to be closer to his real mum. Michelle realises that he couldn't stay with them forever and arranged for his other mum to take him home. Alex is like, "Oh, shot me off back there. I never want to see you again." But they eventually made up, and then she took him to Ireland to meet the rest of the Connor clan, and let's never speak of him again.
Please, God, no.
He has pretty much been retconned out of it, hasn't he? I mean, Ryan's barely mentioned. I can't remember the last time. I think
they've just been like, should we just reset Michelle to 0 babies?
Because how long's it been since Ryan has been out of it now? 2 or 3 years, and he's never mentioned.
I mean, every so often she'll say, "Oh, it was tough on me being a young mum."
I'm sure that she made one reference when Ryan was in it a few years ago to saying, "Oh, I carried you," or when I was pregnant with you.
Yeah, she did.
I think she's kind of forgotten.
And we went, what?
What was wrong with that storyline? Is it just like because soaps are full of weird things like this happening? I don't know what it is that made.
Because the reason why they've dropped it is because it takes too long to explain whenever it comes up, and it is a comical situation. So if she every time it came up to do with his son, and she was like, "Let's all remember that you were swapped as a baby, and you're not really my real son," it's just stupid.
Is it just a case of like, this has gone a bit too far, this doesn't really happen in real life kind of
I
thing?
don't think it does happen, but very rarely, and I would be shocked if it happens very much in the UK.
Yeah, so it's too complicated anyway, so yeah, never mention
I'm
it
sure
again.
they have special measures in hospitals specifically because this can happen, though.
They put little tags on them, don't they?
Yeah, well, that's the reason
tags on
why.
The toes.
It would have made more sense if they had a story where somebody swapped them over.
I honestly, I can't remember what.
No, that wasn't what happened.
Wasn't
but you can imagine now if they want to do a story like that where a baby gets swapped and we see it happening.
I don't like the look of that one.
No, you can imagine it happening. Like, I can imagine Tracy doing it to somebody. Can't you? Just to screw him up.
Yeah, I
can imagine her doing it.
I don't think that Coronation Street would go down.
But it makes
this
more
baby
sense.
swapping route again.
No, but it makes more sense to see it from the point at which it happens rather than having it revealed 15 years or 60 or however long later, because it really doesn't. No one cares. You know what I mean?
Maybe this is why at the time people thought it was silly. It was like, no, he is your
15
son.
15 years ago, all right.
He is your son. He's been your son for the past year that he's been on the programme. Why are you trying to tell me otherwise?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Michelle's story late in the second half of 2008 transitioned into one where Steve had a drunken one night stand with Becky secretly, and Michelle suspected that something was going on between him and Leanne actually, so she throws him out. Although she humiliates him by letting him go out and buy an expensive engagement ring for her, and he proposed to her, and she's like, no. But they still remained a couple, so even back then Steve was under the thumb. Glutton for punishment, exactly. Now, later on that year, Becky goes on a drunken rampage. Do you remember this?
You forgot that Liam gets killed.
Liam got killed.
I mean, killed in a hit-and-run accident.
Yeah, arranged by Tony Warden, so now she is bloodless. Do you remember Becky's rampage? I can't remember what
No.
what set it off, but I remember it happening. It was quite cool. And she said...
No, you're not supposed to say that. It's very
It was
naughty.
very dramatic to watch. And she said when she was questioned that she'd been with Steve all the time and that they were having an affair.
I remember this.
And this is where the seeds of Steve and Becky's relationship started. And oh my gosh, why couldn't Steve and Becky have just stayed together? Because they were the most amazing street couple. But anyway, Steve was like...
Everything has to come to an end.
Oh, I know, if you're going to go off and be an aspiring actress like Catherine.
Yeah.
Anyway, Steve said... she said to Steve, look, you got to go along with this fact. You got to say that you were with me and it wasn't me that was smashed up the place the other night. Otherwise, I'm going to tell Michelle about this one night stand we had. And as the court date approached, Steve and Becky got closer and closer. And then I think she was let off, and they ended up having a bit of a kiss and a cuddle in the courtroom. And it was sweet rather than they're having an affair, because I think people just didn't really like the idea of Steve and Michelle together, and I think people still don't really like them together, do they?
We like them more now.
We like them more than we used to.
But she did seem to be almost wholly responsible for his descent into depression.
I know.
For her continuing nagging at him. But as I've said before, a woman only can nag at a man if she's asked him to do something that he doesn't do. So all this nonsense about women always nagging men, maybe if, yes, they didn't bother to ever ask a man to do something around the house, they wouldn't be nagging.
Well, exactly. That's a very easy solution to
Maybe
it
if
all.
we all had Polish slaves. You say you don't understand what a Polish slave is even supposed to do around the house because you never do anything yourself.
I would like a Polish slave that did all the jobs that I was supposed to do.
So I can shut up nagging.
Gemma doesn't nag. She's lovely, everybody. Anyway.
Take the bins out.
I can't do a podcast. We are, so Steve told Becky that he was going to dump Michelle, but he couldn't bring himself to do it, and he just ended up kind of being a purposely bad boyfriend in the hope that she would dump him. But before she could, in early 2009, the truth about this one-night stand and then the affair came out, and Michelle left to go on tour with her old mate JD, although not before having a bit of a fling with Peter Barlow as well.
Why would you pass up the chance?
I know, to
have a whirl with
bed the
Barlow,
yeah.
yeah.
I know. Handsome chap. Look at those tattoos for.
Oh, such a sailor. After a few months, she came back to Weatherfield and she had a short relationship with Luke Strong, who was the factory boss at the time, and Jake Harmon, who was a builder at the time. And both of those people have disappeared into nothingness.
They're a bit different than Steve, aren't they? And Peter. Steve's a bit of a kind of a meek,
This goes to show you. Can I just say this is the perfect illustration of the difference between Totty that gets brought in for quick ratings boost and a proper good character who stays in the show for a long time. Steve and Peter are both perfect examples of a proper three-dimensional character whose actor has not been hired for his looks, but rather because of his ability to either be charming or interesting or funny. Jake Harmon and Luke Strong, I could barely remember Luke Strong. I don't remember Jake.
I remember
at all.
the name Luke Strong.
But these two characters, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that they were Torso of the Month in Heat magazine at some point.
Probably.
And have never been mentioned again. And this is the problem, that they keep falling into this trap of hiring these guys.
Let's hire somebody, a guy or a girl.
And I keep thinking Shane Ward, bless him and his cotton socks, they seem to have thought that they've hired him to be Totty, but he's not. So I only hope that his acting skills can coast him through, because he has the looks of a Peter or a Steve. So there's hope.
Aidan.
There's hope for him. No, I'm saying there's hope for him in the future as a long-lived character, because he's not one of these throwaway, good-looking, pretty boys, and I don't think they're going to treat him like one.
I don't think they're going to treat him like one as well, but I do think he was partly hired for looks as well.
I know.
Why else
that's
would they?
My joke.
Why else would they undo his shirt quite so low?
Yeah, well, they've done it back up again. That's my point.
Yeah, no.
They've been like, do you know what, mate? No one wants to see it.
Well, Aidan's
Nice
going to be
tie.
remembered a little bit more just because he's got the Connor name, hasn't he? But yeah, Luke Strong.
Do you know what though?
Everyone's got the Connor name these days.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's a Connor, and like in 5 years' time, if he leaves in a couple of years, we'll be like, oh, and do you remember Aidan? We'll be talking about someone else's update of Carla's character profile going, oh yeah, and that was when Aidan joined. So do you remember Aidan? Oh yeah, he was played by Shane Ward. I can't remember much about him.
But yeah, I mean that could possibly happen. Like quite often when they bring in a whole family unit together, it's a case of who's going to stick.
Let's prune this family tree.
Yeah, we'll exactly, and we'll see who's left at the end. Anyway.
Sorry about that diversion. But...
Ryan's friend Ben moved in with them at the end of the year while his parents were away, and Ben had been going out with Sophie at the time because this was before her Renaissance, and he tried to kiss Michelle, his friend's mum, and got sent home packing.
That's because she's a MILF.
So she was a proper MILF, wasn't she? She was irresistible. There can't have been. I don't know how old Michelle was supposed to be when she had Ryan or Alex.
She's
or
spoken
whatever.
before about how hard it was and how young she was.
Yeah, 16 or so, I think.
Yeah.
Right, now, new boyfriend on the scene in 2010 for Michelle, Kieran McCarthy. So it was. Now,
another bit of boy band toddy.
Yeah, exactly. But he lasted quite a while, didn't he? To be fair to him. He'd been going out with Sunita, the lovely Sunita, for quite a while before that, and then obviously stuff happened with Dev.
Drip.
Yeah. And she played hard to get with him, but eventually they started going out. Now, he got lured over to this newly opened joinery to work at the end of the year.
He was a chef, wasn't he, with the Navy or something?
Yeah, he was the Robert of 5 years ago, basically, wasn't he? Except I found him a lot more charming than current Robert.
It was just his accent, wasn't it?
And anyway, Liz tried to bar him from going in the Rovers because he had been working there. He'd been cooking, and he was a barman and cooking and stuff.
Was this when we had the whole debacle with the hot pot recipe?
Yeah, I think that he took Becky's hot pot recipe over to the joinery, and I can't remember what happened with it in the end, but anyway, the joinery ended up blowing up. But Kieran was fine. He got out, didn't he?
Was it just a really spicy hot pot?
It was gas, wasn't it? The gas.
Too much Swede.
Yeah, Michelle also quits her job at the Rovers in solidarity of her Irish fella, and this is when she gets the job in Underworld as Carla's assistant. And she didn't really seem to have much to do during her time at Underworld, did she? She was just kind of sit at the computers and have a gossip with Carla.
Who even remembers that she worked there? I certainly don't.
Oh yeah, I remember she worked there, but it's like at the moment where there are a few too many bosses at Underworld, and I think Michelle wasn't particularly necessary there. Sadly for Michelle, in 2011, Kieran was offered a job on a cruise ship. Oh no, it was good for her at first. She went off with Kieran for 10 months. I think this was when Kim was on maternity leave. But they came back in November and they were engaged. And I thought, brilliant. Because all through this time, I remember, because this is when the romance between Steve and Becky was blossoming. But always in the back of my mind, I was thinking, what if he goes back to Michelle, and wouldn't that be awful? And when she came back from this cruise engaged to Kieran, I thought, fantastic. But they were all getting ready to get engaged. She gave him some money to book a wedding venue with. He ended up gambling it away in a poker game. She called off the engagement, and that was it for them, really. I think they were going to stay together, but he decided, I'm going to go back and work on this cruise ship alone. And she was going to go with him, but then she decided to stay behind. But she would always love him.
Yes, just like that famous song.
Yeah. Now, this is why if Kieran comes back, and his name does sometimes appear on the lists of potential comeback people, doesn't it? They should have had Kieran come back. If he'd come in it now instead of Will,
yeah, that would have
I think this would be
sense.
A heck of a lot more interesting, because I'm not invested in the whole Will.
Yeah,
and I can just see he's going to be gone in a few weeks.
And with Will being all like, oh yeah, maybe I will dump Saskia and go out with you, it's kind of like you'd feel a bit more sympathetic if it was Kieran going, maybe Saskia isn't right for me.
Yeah, we've got history, Michelle.
Yeah, exactly.
Come back with me to Bonnie Island. Is that, do they say Bonnie Island or is that to Scotland? I don't even know. Yeah, they should. And Keith has said that he'd like to come back and be in Corrie. Missed opportunity there. 2012, Gemma.
Well, she stole a contract because she was being a great assistant. She stole it from Frank Foster because he was going to put Carla out of business at Underworld. And then Frank turns up dead.
Oh no!
And she was one of the suspects, but we knew it wasn't her at all.
We knew it was
This was
be
one
Anne.
of the failures, the Corrie murder mystery failures, one of quite a few that they've managed to ruin.
Yeah, it was the worst one, wasn't it? Because they
was
had the
the
lineup
very
on the soap
worst
magazines
one.
of who could it be? Was it Peter? Was it Sally? Was it
it
Michelle?
Carla?
Was it Carla? Oh no, we tricked you. It was his mum.
And everyone was like,
kind
I
of
think it's
guessed
Anne. I think it might be his mum. I think it was her. Oh, it was her. Okay. Well, yeah, she was cleared when it turned out to be Anne what done it. Then Ryan came back from university in July. With a different head, and because, as we know, no true Corrie character can ever go to university without something going horribly wrong.
When he went off to university, he wasn't quite hot totty enough, but now he's played by Sol Harras, the
Oh, lovely.
handsome actor.
And he was expelled for drug taking. I don't think they call it expelled from university.
Kicked out.
Michelle took him to work at the factory, and then he faked an injury and tried to sue them.
He was a total
He was
arse, wasn't
horrible.
he?
And then he got caught by Michelle snorting cocaine, and she got him arrested.
When he came back, this was when Rob was first in the programme as well, and he was like, oh, look at these two new hunks coming to join Corrie.
Yeah, I remember that, and I was just annoyed about both.
We were
of them.
annoyed about them being hunks, but then Ryan was in no way likeable.
No.
Because he was off smoking, and I remember he burned down some curtains.
Didn't he catch the eye of Sophie as well?
Yeah, he did for a final.
5 minutes.
He's probably what turned her off. Or was it? Oh, was it? No, no, he wasn't. No, Sophie was a lesbian by then, because this is
I'm
since
sure
we've been
I
doing...
remember them sitting out the back of a house.
Yeah, I do as well. I remember.
And he
the
was
exact
smoking,
thing.
and she's like, "Ow."
Yeah, no, this wasn't. This was after it, because this was since we've been doing the podcast, and she's been on the other bus since we've been recording, hasn't she?
Michael, sexuality is a, what's it called?
Spectrum.
It's not one or the other.
Depends on how your storyline wants to take you, and
Exactly.
Marcus Dent is a perfect example.
So, Steve started to develop feelings for Michelle again, and he helped her deal with Ryan to try and win her the key to her pants, and it worked.
There's no key on Michelle's pants.
You think it's Leanne?
She's the last one to have a chat.
Leanne doesn't have a key. She's got a coin slot.
This is in the past. We can't forget about that.
2013. Carla gives Peter a share in Underworld, and Michelle gets worried that he's going to ruin it because he ruined the bookies because he's crazy. So she quits and she goes to work in the Rovers. And then Steve buys the Rovers from Stella. Who? Exactly. And plans to make Michelle the landlady. And then Liz comes back. She returns to Weatherfield. She bought the place with Steve, and she thought she was going to be the landlady. She was all excited about it, and it was a bit awkward.
Yes. And then Ryan headed off.
Bye, Ryan.
Bye, Ryan.
Don't come back.
Nice knowing you. Yeah, please. Off to doing some DJing and
So
Ibiza.
this is when
She's cool.
Michelle starts her business, because Steve and Michelle helped to plan Carla and Peter's wedding. And Steve was a lot more involved in it at this point. He doesn't seem to do very much now, but he wasn't he talking about buying one of those cute little Volkswagen buses things.
Yeah, they did get one, didn't they?
I think they did.
I can't remember what happened to that.
So because of this, they start their own party planning business, which then turns into a wedding planning business.
Yeah, more of a wedding.
And then Steve gets annoyed when the beautiful and lovely and effervescent Andrea turns up.
No, Michelle gets annoyed.
What did I say?
You said Steve gets annoyed.
Michelle gets annoyed when Steve brings along Andrea, his lovely friend.
Because this is when Steve
he had started this history course, and he was
suffered the ridicule of his mum and girlfriend for daring to further his education.
Yeah, and they mock him a lot, but he spends a lot of his time with his friend Andrea, and he makes out that she's an ugly old hag. But then it turns out that she's the star of Chicago. And she can sing and she can dance, and she's got a lovely face and nice voice.
Yeah, Michelle did not like this because
she was threatened, and then she was placated, and then she realised that it was a lie.
Steve had bought Michelle a nice dress for a Christmas present or something, hadn't he? And then Andrea turns up on Christmas Day,
that's right,
saying, "Oh, how do you like the dress?"
And
Michelle's like, "What?" Yeah, so at the beginning of 2014, Michelle is very insecure about this. And there's also a pregnancy scare, isn't there? Michelle thinks she's pregnant, but then she
doesn't want a baby,
no,
so she tells Steve to have a vasectomy.
Yeah.
And Steve doesn't want this, so Andrea tells Steve to stand up to her and say he doesn't want it. And so she says, fine, all right, don't have a vasectomy then, we just won't have sex anymore.
And this is Michelle kind of being with Steve under the thumb to
This
a T,
is the
wasn't
height
it?
of Michelle's bitchery.
Yeah, it has come down a lot even since, and this is only 2 years ago, but she was not nice, was she? And I did want Steve to run off with Andrea. I'm not for infidelity usually,
I
but
really don't understand why they never even mentioned, well, why don't you just have a hysterectomy if you don't want any more children, or at least get your tubes tied? Or they never even brought it up.
I don't know if they did or not, no.
Well, it's
Don't
really
remember that.
annoying.
It's usually the kind of vasectomy. I mean, that's supposedly
If I
the
was
easy
Steve,
operation
I would have
anyway,
said,
isn't it?
all right, well, why don't you have a boob job?
I think
If my body belongs to you, then your body belongs to me, and you're getting a bit saggy, if you ask me. Get those boobs hiked up.
I think Kim has already had a. I think she
Well,
had a boob
there
job.
was a massive thing about that. She said she didn't, and then
Was there?
I think there was a massive hoo-ha
Oh,
about
God,
it.
let's not go
I
there, then.
think, yeah.
Anyway, Michelle starts worrying that Steve's going off of her. Why would Steve go off of her?
But why? She's so beautiful and talented and
Not
lovely.
at all, Maggie. She doesn't realise that he has got depression. That the depression starts. I can't remember what it was. Was it? It was to do with he knew something. Was it to do with him? He knew that Peter had been going out with Tina or something. I can't remember. I cannot remember. But there was some little thing that started supposedly started to keep Steve's depression off. And he buys that sports car and stuff, doesn't he? And he's ignoring her and everything. And basically they split up, and I thought, brilliant. Except, obviously, now they're back together again. So, in the meantime, early 2015, Michelle started to date Hamish, who is one of her...
Apparently, can I just say about
Oh, yeah.
the boob job? Apparently, she just had a boob job, and she told everybody.
Oh, okay.
And it cost her £4,000, which apparently is a thing that we must know.
Oh, quite
And
good
she
rates.
went from a 34B to a 34D.
Well, lucky Steve. All I can
Or
say.
whatever.
Or whatever. Yeah, so she's dating Hamish anyway, but she decides to reconsider.
Do you know what? The name Hamish,
Yes.
it always seems to me like that the H should be silent.
Hamish.
Yes, do you know what I mean?
Well,
it's
it is
just
when they
such
say
a
it in-
laboured H. It's just like Hamish.
It is when they
Hamish.
say it up north, isn't it? Oh, I'm dating Hamish.
Is it really?
What? No, I don't know. And they drop their H's up there, don't they? Oh, it's Hamish. I'm from Lancashire.
It just is such a terrible name.
Anyway, he wasn't even Scottish, is all I remember about him.
Yeah, that's the worst part about him.
Yeah. So she decides to go back with Steve because there was all the minibus crash, wasn't there, early last year, and this is when he finally admitted, I've got depression. So she's like, right, I'm going to sort you out. Let's get back together
I owe
again.
£10,000.
Yeah. Now
Let's get married.
This is when Michelle started being a bit nicer, and even though it turned out that Steve owed £10,000 in tax, Michelle still agreed to marry him, and they tied the knot in May thanks to a bit of a cash injection from Tony. But sadly, they couldn't enjoy their happily married life for long
Because Tony was going out with Liz, who's Steve's dad, and
Yeah, exactly.
Steve's mum, and blah, blah, blah.
Steve went off to visit Andy in Spain after he broke his leg again. And that is where he is up till now. So Michelle's had to cope with being an independent woman, juggling wedding planning, streetcars, Rovers, and who knows what else. Amy, exactly, all without Steve. And now she's worried that he's not going to want to come back to her.
Now her head's been turned by the beautiful and charismatic Will. Her old boyfriend from when she was 14.
So, Kim has obviously had many interviews over the past decade about Michelle, but I picked out one quote about the personality of her, and we'll see whether we agree with this. She said, the good thing about playing a character like her is she's got many sides. She can be a bitch, she can be sensitive, and she can be feisty too. She's just so well-rounded. There's plenty more mileage left in her. I think this is a fairly early on quote. I think that is true. She does have a sensitive side, doesn't she? And
She is a fairly well-rounded character, but she's been written as a one-dimensional character for such a long time that it's difficult to... Only recently has she ever been likeable.
She has her moments of being nice, and she's obviously been very supportive to Carla as well.
I was going to say, the
hasn't
only
she?
person she's ever been actually nice to all of the time is Carla.
I think they fell out for a bit.
Yeah, but she seems to, when she falls out with Carla, it's because she cares about her and she can see that Carla's doing the wrong thing. I don't remember her ever really getting mad at Carla.
I can't remember. I don't remember.
I feel like she's way more supportive and nice to Carla than she ever has been to Steve.
Why is it that... Because Corrie is supposed to be built on, like, feisty, battle-axy, hard women, strong women. Why does it rub us up the wrong way so much
It's
when
weird,
it's Michelle?
Because I was going to say, the reason why we don't like her is because... Actually, no, this is right. The reason we don't like her is because she's so horrible to Steve, normally. And although we've had a relationship where the female character was always horrible to the male character, which was... oh, God, I had their names right there.
Stan and Hilda?
No.
Jack and Vera.
Jack and Vera. But Jack gave as good as he got. Steve doesn't. Steve just lets himself...
Rolls over a bit, doesn't he?
Be walked all over, and it didn't do either of them really much good.
With Jack and Vera as well, like at the end of it, even at the end of every episode almost, you'd have Vera like saying, "Oh, I love you though, don't you?" And he'd be like, "Oh, my little swamp duck."
Yeah.
And you could tell that they really, really did love each other, and they had this long-lasting relationship. And you just
don't get that with these two.
No, with Steve, the episode ends with Steve in the doghouse.
Yeah.
And you did just feel like he was getting ganged up on because Liz was there as well, and she had that thing with her arms folding, which people picked up on, and the people on the internet call her Miss Hell, and they've really got it against her, haven't they? But
I don't bother reading any of the forums about it because it seems like the people on forums that I've seen only talk about how much they hate the show.
I know they do. We say nice things. We mostly say nice things about it, don't we? But I hope that when Steve comes back soon, I'm just worried about this whole Will storyline being a little unnecessary bump in the road. You're like, oh, drama. Yeah.
Because
I want him to come back and them just have a bit of a happy time together.
I think you're completely right about the Kieran thing. This would have been a really compelling and interesting storyline if it had only been Kieran. Would have been fantastic. But as it is, we've got this grinning moron called Will, who nobody wants Michelle to go out with. Surely there's not a single person in the audience who is rooting for Will and Michelle to get together. But whereas I think quite a lot of people, it would have been split between who do you want Michelle to go with? Should she go back to Steve or should she go back to Kieran?
And I think probably, to be honest, more people would have probably sided with her going off with Kieran, not because we think that that's
better for Michelle.
Yeah,
but more that she's detrimental to Steve.
Yeah, but actually, I don't want her to go off with Will because he's obviously been brought in as a little plot device, and I'd rather see her give it a proper go with Steve. I just hope she can. She can't go out with Will. No, I think Michelle's biggest problem, and this isn't at all her fault, is that she's. Where Steve is concerned is that people compare her to some of the greatest Coronation Street women there have been in recent years, Karen MacDonald and Becky MacDonald, and by God, she does not hold a candle to them, does she?
No,
because they were just such incredible characters
and very good actresses. Really good actors.
Kim Marsh is a fine actress.
Yeah, we're not going to knock Kim Marsh's acting, but I think it's very telling that she didn't want to be famous as an actress. She might have found it as a passion later on in her career, but she wanted to be known for her singing. So her true love isn't acting.
I don't know whether I'm guessing this, but you're right. She was a singer.
Just something unlikable about Michelle's attitude to Steve, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
I tell you, maybe it's because she almost doesn't have a personality beyond her criticism of Steve, whereas with Becky and Karen, they both had flaws, and you could say, you're not perfect yourself, miss thing. Who do you think you are? Whereas Michelle, it's like, Steve's done this wrong. Steve's done this wrong. Steve's done this wrong. And you're like, yeah, well, I guess he can't really compete with you, Miss Perfect. No. She hasn't done anything wrong. When has she ever been in the wrong? There's no depth to her like that, is there?
I am struggling to think.
She's not. What she needs to do is be humbled, and maybe this is the making of it. The storyline with Will, where she goes, "Oh yeah, I screwed up here. I went off and I did the wrong thing." But the thing is, she's never hugely moral. You're not ever like she's a paragon of virtue. She saw that she was in the wrong with Will, and she's tried to bin him. But you don't give her marks for it, 'cause she's not like a lovely innocent character like Raquel or anything like that.
Even when they softened her last year, and when she was worried about Steve's depression, she was worried that Steve was going off of her. It was never really, I'm worried that Steve is going off of me because I nag at him and get at him too much. It was more like, is he going off of me? Does he not find me sexy or whatever anymore? She didn't take any blame for that. She
needs some flaws, was what she needs. She needs some flaws.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go down the Carla route, because Carla's got too many flaws now. She's had so many stupid habits, like, I gamble, I'm alcoholic, but I'm not really an alcoholic and I'm not really a gambler. It's just part of my personality.
Yeah, we need something.
What do you know about her? What do you know about what she likes? What do you know about what she dislikes?
She's very much just kind of a person, isn't she?
She's
more realistic to people in real life, maybe, that she doesn't have this.
Yeah, she doesn't she's not like a larger than life person.
She's got a secret son. That's what makes her interesting.
I tell you, another thing is, like, could you dress up as Michelle? No, not really.
You can do that with most.
You could dress up as Becky. You could dress up as old Blood Orange.
Tina.
Yeah, you could dress up as Carla. You could dress up as Liz. Do you know what I'm saying? You could dress up as Mary. You could dress up as
Michelle's just like black.
Michelle is just bland.
Yeah.
She's too bland, and she needs a bit of vice about her. Is what she needs. I mean, we know she likes singing, and she hasn't done that in such a long time.
Yeah, maybe that.
I mean, for goodness sake,
that route for a story.
What I don't understand, she's a wedding planner, but she was also in a band. Does she ever mention this? Does she ever go, oh yeah, I'm just going to plan a wedding. Oh, do you want any of my friends who've been in bands to play at your wedding? Oh, I could sing at your wedding. I used to be a singer. No, she's totally forgotten that. She just seems like a blank slate that kind of gets renewed every year. Like, it just wipes off everything. Son, just wipe that bit off about your son. No, forget about that. Let's just wipe this bit off about the fact that you used to be in a band. Forget about that. That's boring. Let's wipe this bit off where you used to nag at Steve. Now you're a nice wife.
No, you're right. I think you're right.
Oh, let me just write in this bit about Will. Yeah, just write this bit in.
Needs to have a few more layers to her personality, doesn't she?
She's been in it for 10 years.
Yeah, and there's not much you can say about...
And
there's not many kind of, what's your favourite Michelle moment?
Yeah, she's been in it for 10 years.
Your best Michelle story.
She's been in it for long enough that she's had enough relationships, but yet we're still like, here's Will! So you're telling me that in the last 10 years there's not been anyone interesting enough to bring back instead of Will? Literally nothing she's done in that 10 years is significant enough that it would have beat Will out for being this comeback, old flame.
Yeah, no.
I think it's partly that, and partly that I don't think the show really gives a crap about her, really.
But they seem to think that everybody likes her.
But they don't care about her, otherwise they would have gone, let's get Kieran back, let's get Luke Strong back, let's get this old, Jake Harris back, you know?
Yeah.
They would have put their money in their pockets and, made a bit more of an effort. This is just lazy.
Maybe they think that... I think they think that she's a good one to keep on the show for kind of appearances. And,
because she
scrubs
does her,
up nicely, and
she does her little
DVD,
fitness DVD.
So
she's always, every Christmas, she's like, come on, fatties, I was a size 12 once, I know your struggle.
Yeah. So I can't see that... I don't know whether she could she be on Kate Oak's hit list?
Well, if she carried... The thing is, she's not as bad as Maria. Maria is a non-entity who just is there. Who knows why? Is she in the show anymore?
She will be next week. She's back.
Well, she's like the epitome of bland, boring rubbish on the show. Poor Maria, and it's not the actress's fault.
They just don't know what to do with her,
attractive
do they?
Women, and I think they're scared of making them ugly by giving them bad storylines because they know they're maybe not as skilled at acting as Catherine Kelly, who can handle those scenes. But I give her a shot. Let's see what she can do.
I wonder whether they should try and give Michelle and Maria a proper storyline together, because they're both Connors and the
Do you
family.
think it would just like stuck into nothingness, and you'd be watching it, and half an hour later you'd be like, I haven't written anything down. I don't know what's happened.
I don't know what they could do, but give Michelle and Maria a storyline together possibly could work.
But
Michelle
just
kind of stayed.
With Maria.
Michelle's just behind the bar at the Rovers too much, isn't she? She needs to branch out, and
she's not careful. She's going to turn into a Sean. where the only interesting thing about Sean is his funny throwaway lines in a Rovers scene, and the fact that he's going out with a gay vicar.
Michelle doesn't even
Don't
have
you
that.
think that Sean and Michelle are both more interesting because of who they go out with rather than who they are at the moment?
Yes, although I do find Sean.
But Sean is a lot more
likeable.
likeable than Michelle.
Yeah,
because he's got that funny.
Well, Sean is. I'm going to give a throwaway comedy sort of funny line, isn't it? And Michelle's. I'm just going to say a naggy line.
I know, but
or criticism.
if you gave Sean's funny lines to Michelle, I mean, disregarding the fact that a lot of them are
innuendo,
the humour is based on the fact that it's a gay man saying it. It would be like, oh, what a bitch.
Yeah, that's true. I think some people do think that about Sean, actually. Well, Michelle, we say about...
Sean will forever have a place in my heart, merely for the gesture that he makes where he primps his non-existing curls.
Yeah, that's Bette Lynch living on through him.
I really think that if he hadn't come up with that gesture, he would have gone a long time ago. But that is comedy. Every time he does it, I just love it.
I know, and I wonder whether that kind of thing is in the script for Sean as well.
I know, he just kind of like, maybe it's just a thing he does. Like,
Now we say about Michelle possibly being on Kate Oak's potential hit list, but she has talked about leaving quite a lot. Phew, you're still here, everybody. You're done. You listened to that 50 minutes of pure Michelle goodness. Well, we have got more to give you right now, because after 2016, which is where we just left off, we still had a couple more years of Michelle on the cobbles, and that's what we're going to talk about now, aren't we?
yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We definitely are. We last left with Will turning up on the scene. Now,
Glasses Will.
He had 2 stints on the show, and this first one in 2016. I don't know. It's not the one that he's most remembered for. I don't think he was especially villainous back then, because Michelle, who's still obviously going out with Steve at the time, starts to she gets to get those feelings back again for Will. She starts to realise what she used to love about him, and she almost goes to bed with him. But when she's on her way up to the boudoir, she sees a picture of Saskia, his wife, and then she thinks better of it. So, well, no, not wife. Is it wife to be? I think wife to be. Yeah, I think they're getting engaged or whatever, and she's being wedding planner for it. So anyway, eventually Steve finds out that Will and Michelle did at least kiss, but after a little bit of a split up, he forgives her. Fair play to him. I'd probably forgive her as well if I had a hot wife like Michelle.
You won't forgive me though.
You're just as hot as Michelle, Gemma. Don't worry. But I don't think you're going to be going around snogging any of my exes, are you? I don't have any. I don't have any, so it's fine. You're my one and only. Anyway, Michelle finds out that she's pregnant with Steve's baby, and but unbeknownst to her, he's also got Leanne up the duff, because in that brief period of we were on a break, he went and was tempted away.
He did a little break
into the loins of Leanne, and so he's now got 2 babies on the go. Sadly, as we find out in 2017, things don't quite go as planned. I'll pass over 2017 to you.
As planned.
Yes, as planned.
In 2017, Michelle goes into early labour, and she has to deliver her baby at 24 weeks. And he's called Rory. He's not breathing. And the hospital has a policy of not intervening before 24 weeks, and so they don't take any action to save his life. It's absolutely tragic.
It really, really was. And as much as Michelle dislikers as we were back then, I think if there was anything that was going to give us an ounce of sympathy for her, it was this storyline. And Kim Marsh did a really, really good job, because sadly she'd had some personal experience of something similar herself, hadn't she? So it was really close to the bone for her. And but she did fantastically. It was very, very kind of raw and emotional and very harrowing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
where she had to deliver this baby, and yeah, the hospital couldn't do anything about it. It's kind of makes you. I mean, obviously with I think it was like, if it had happened mere days later, the hospital would have been able to do something about it, and kind of makes you think that maybe they need to change their policies. But then where do you draw the line?
We're not talking about that now.
Fine.
Robert begins to develop feelings for Michelle, and she is obviously incredibly depressed, and he talks her out of suicide.
I think that was when did she climb up on a wall or something? I'm remembering.
Yeah, I think she did.
He talked her down. Thanks, Robert.
After Leanne's baby Oliver is born, and Steve holds him for the first time. He just says, "I'm the dad." And that was a bit of a shock revelation because we weren't expecting him to immediately admit it. Were we?
I think that was one of the rare times that Coronation Street hadn't said in advance what was going to happen. And I can't remember what it was. It was some kind of party or something or other, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Steve's like, I don't want to hold it. I don't want to hold
secretly, well, they knew that he was the father, but they were going to keep it a secret. But as soon as he held the child, he just immediately just told everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure Michelle is very, very reasonable about this revelation.
Oh no, she's quite mad. In fact, she's furious. She leaves him, and she also has a bit of a moment, doesn't she? She locks Steve and Liz out of the Rovers, and also she chucks Eva out for good measure too. So she's like occupies the pub.
She did have a bit of a temper on her, that Michelle. Was that when she was maybe throwing bottles through windows as well? Possibly, I can't remember. So many moments of fury for that lady.
Steve tries to work things out because they are married and he believes in love. If there's one thing Steve believes in, it's marriage, but not necessarily with the same
times.
woman all the time. He discovers Michelle has had sex with Robert, and the couple declare war against each other, and she has to move out of the Rovers, and she moves in with Robert. But then,
I like how when you said sex, you kind of whispered it.
I did. I'm like that lady on the
sex
on telly. Will turns back up again.
Yes.
My eyes didn't focus quick enough, and I thought this read, and is in a relationship with Norris.
What? Maria.
No, Maria. It looks a bit like Norris.
I'm not going to say no to that one. This was proper villain Will, wasn't it? And this is when he had fun made out of him by the viewing public when he was kept on turning taking his glasses on and putting them off. It was his disguise, wasn't it?
Yeah, he thought he was Clark Kent or something.
Something like that. But he wasn't. He was actually, who's the baddie in Superman? Lex Luthor.
I don't think so.
He's pretty rotten. He did some kidnapping.
He did have a nice big house, didn't he?
Yes, he had a big posh house.
So, Will turns back up again. He's in a relationship with Maria. Anyone who tells you it's Norris is talking rubbish. Michelle gets kidnapped, and then she gets gagged.
By him.
And left in the boot of a car, in a car park, and she doesn't see who it is, but she thinks it's nasty Rich Collis, who is an old associate of Robert's.
Yeah, he was someone who had worked in the kitchens with him back in the day. And do you remember that story of
drugs?
Robert's druggy co-worker. Yeah, they all kind of worked and basically did drugs in the kitchen together. Robert
beats Rich up, leaving him in a critical condition. But, as we all know, it was actually Will what done it, and he is also stalking her.
Done what?
Kidnapped her. Yes. He said that a minute ago.
Oh, yeah.
Michelle finds out about Will's stalking, and then she says, "Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this to his door." She breaks into his place. It says flat, but I remember him having a massive house.
Yeah, you're right. It was a massive... It's one of these modern houses,
wasn't it? It's like a big open
glass
plan.
everywhere. Yeah.
Very posh. So she breaks into the house with Leanne's help, and they both get caught. And then Leanne falls down the stairs.
This is great.
In the struggle. I don't know why Leanne is now Michelle's ally in this.
I've lost track over the years between Michelle, Leanne and Carla. They were just, two of them are friends and three of them are friends and none of them are friends and one's friend with the other. I've lost track. But anyway, Leanne's helping Michelle out at this point, but she wishes she wouldn't because, she had a bit of a tumble down the stairs, didn't she?
Luckily, Steve comes and saves the day and he punches Will in the face.
Yes.
And Will is arrested later on. At the end of the year, Robert is diagnosed with testicular cancer and he ends up gambling to take his mind off things. He goes a bit crazy, doesn't he? He starts running about as well to try to get healthy.
Oh, yeah.
Michelle is like, I know what I should do here. I should dress up like a bistro ninja and steal money from the till to get more cash.
That was classic Michelle. Was that her first bistro ninja? I can't remember whether she'd done it before, but yeah, she gets all donned up in black, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Does some sneaking around in there, but she chose the wrong night because there was another couple of people at the bistro at the same time, wasn't there?
Kate Connor and a glass bottle.
What?
No. Well, who's the other person?
Rana.
You haven't written that down.
I flippin' well have. You just need to read ahead a little bit. Kate and Rana are there canoodling, the street's latest lesbian lovers. But there was a glass bottle there as well, and it finds its way upon Michelle's noggin because they think that it's not Michelle. I'm sure they wouldn't have done it if they'd known it was her.
So Kate and Rana were there.
Yeah.
And Michelle's been hit on the head, but it's a stalemate because Rana and Kate aren't supposed to be together.
No, they're not supposed to be snogging after hours in the bistro.
I won't tell anybody that you were here if you don't tell anybody that I was here.
Yeah. Yeah, basically that's that. And she ends up with a bit of a sore head. So, that was 2018's end-of-year drama. Moving into 2018, she has a bit of a meet-up again with her son, Alex. And I think we talked earlier on the last podcast about the whole... we must have talked about the whole baby swap situation and Alex Neeson and whether we'd get to see him again or whether they'd just conveniently forgotten about that story. But no,
do it again.
They decided in 2018 to open that wound up again. And not only did they bring back Alex Neeson, now called Ali, because there's another Alex in the show already. Alex... what's that other Alex Warner, is it? Yeah, in the cafe.
Yeah.
And yes, they bring him back, played by James Burrows, and also Ryan Connor later in the year as well. Anyway, Ali, is a hunky doctor now, and he's a bit bitter towards Michelle at first for abandoning him for all these years and kind of hoping that the storyline would go away. But they end up getting closer, and they're best of mummy and son friends before long.
So he's her real child.
He is her real son, yes.
But he wasn't raised by her.
Correct. He was raised by Wendy Neeson.
And somehow he's turned out better than Ryan.
Yes, somehow.
Weird.
Ryan's just a DJ still over in Ibiza, but he's back on the scene later in the year, now played by Ryan Prescott, because this is when Michelle and Robert's wedding was due to take place. So Ryan comes back to that. He and Ali don't get on, but again, they start to become friends soon. And in fact, many fans were hoping that Ryan and Ali would become more than just friends, wouldn't they? For peak weirdness.
Yeah.
But I think for the better, Coronation Street don't decide to go down that route. I
still think it would have been so funny, but I don't think they're going for comedy incest.
No. So, Michelle and Robert's wedding. Now, there's a bit of drama there, isn't there? Because Michelle gets shot in the stomach by Pat Phelan.
Ow.
Yes, that's what she said. You're right. Don't do that to me, Pat. Don't shoot me in the stomach. I'm a main character.
Me?
Yeah. So this was Pat's final episode, wasn't it? He'd been on the run, hadn't he? And then he came back to the street to have revenge on basically everybody.
I will have my revenge.
Accidentally shoots his daughter Nicola, brings her to the bistro where the wedding celebration's
goes,
going on. She's going ow, ow, ow as well, probably. Anyway, they end up back in the kitchen. Pat and Anna Windass and Michelle. Michelle gets shot in the stomach, and we were like, yay!
Yeah, he's killed her.
But somehow she manages to survive a bullet to the chest or gut or wherever it went. And unlike Pat, who didn't come out of that kitchen alive because he ended up getting stabbed by Anna Windass, didn't he? Yeah. Michelle's like, all right, Anna,
shake it off.
I am not going to tell anybody that you ran up to him with a knife and stabbed him because he was a villain. So I'm going to say you stabbed him in self-defense. Deal. So Michelle and Anna, what pair of conspirators they are, they need to be brought to justice for this, I say.
I mean, was it really that big of a big deal?
Pat.
Because he'd already stabbed two people. He shot somebody and stabbed somebody. I don't think that you need to lie and say anything other than
he just deserved it. He had it coming.
Well, he would have killed Anna if he had a chance to.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. Anyway,
I don't care.
Michelle somehow managed to come out of that relatively unscathed, joining,
she's ruined her dress.
Part of the club that Shona and Ardy are now in now.
No, she didn't get shot. Who did?
Michelle gets shot.
I thought she got stabbed.
No, I said shot. There was no knives involved there.
Oh, yeah,
only
Nicola got stabbed, yeah. I mean,
No, Nicola got... I don't think Pat stabbed anybody. I think he was more of a gunny gun guy.
Really, shooting is more hygienic.
Why is that?
Because you don't get gunk on you.
Also, nobody's going to use your gun to slice up a piece of meat afterwards.
Yeah, or like stab somebody out, or like, he's going around stabbing lots of people, or Anna's stabbing people. If you stab somebody else, you could give them some kind of disease.
Yeah.
Bullets, so I'd say don't.
One and done.
I think he's better.
One use only.
I think Pat is better than Anna. He's more hygienic.
Anyway, there's more drama for the Connors later on that year when Cormac and Ronan Truman show up on the scene. Now, Ronan had been in the show like a year and a half before. I think he was involved with Adam at that point. I can't remember. But he comes back at the end of 2018, played by a different character. And he's a nasty villainous type, and his son Cormac is just as bad. He ends up taking a drug overdose or something, does he? In front of Ryan, has a bit of a bad reaction to it and starts seizing away on the floor there. Ryan doesn't phone an ambulance though.
Ryan just phones Ali.
He phones his brother and is like, "You're a doctor, come and out this guy." But unfortunately for Cormac, he doesn't make it through.
Ali turns up and was like, "Yep, he's dead.
Yep,
what
should have
else do you
phoned an
want me to
ambulance,
do?"
brother. Anyway, so Ronan
gets annoyed.
He gets rather annoyed at this. He takes out a vendetta against the Connors, gets into a massive car chase with them. That was around the time of Stephen Tracy's wedding, I think, wasn't it? And basically just ends up dying in amongst all the drama. They have a bit of a car crash. He has a bit of a fence pole through him, and Dr. Ali doesn't save his life. So Michelle survives another attempt on her life. She's like Teflon, this woman, isn't she?
Yep.
Gemma's nodding to mean yes. It's a podcast, though. Anyway, later on the year, Michelle thinks she's pregnant again with Robert's little sprog. But she gets hit in the stomach with a football, which kind of sucks. I don't think she was actually pregnant. I can't really remember. But in any case, she says to Carla, "Look, I don't want to be pregnant again after everything that happened with Rory. And so, Robert, if you want to be a dad, it's going to have to be with someone else." And Michelle's kind of really, really struggled for quite a long time after Rory's death, didn't she? And,
yeah, I mean, it's traumatic. She must have traumatic stress disorder from, or like the idea of being pregnant.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we made an awful lot of fun of Michelle over the years. She was one of the characters that we loved to hate. And her obsession over her dead baby, which is really no laughing matter.
No.
But yeah, she did play that role very, very well, and the grief and everything. Good on her. So leading into her final year, Gemma, 2019, what happened?
Well, Robert goes missing around the time of the factory roof collapse, and then
Was it him?
Michelle has to support Carla because she is going through a terrible mental health crisis after the collapse, seeing ghosts and such.
Yes, Carla blames herself for the factory roof collapsing, and it kind of was partly her fault, to be fair, wasn't it? Because she only paid for a quick botched job of the repair of it. So Michelle's there to support, whilst at the same time wondering what's going on with Robert. We were all thinking, has Robert done a runner because he was the one that was responsible for the roof collapse? But no, it was Gary.
It was Gary all along.
Yeah.
Turns out Robert is leading a double life, and I don't remember why. But he's got
He just really likes Vicky Jeffries.
And he just likes Irish women.
Yeah.
Because Michelle's not really Irish enough, is she?
Irish, isn't she?
She's
not
quite
Irish enough.
She's like, right, I'm going to up the ante here. I'm going to go out with a proper Irish lass.
Yeah. So Vicky had been in the programme like a year before, hadn't she? I can't remember. She came in... I don't remember much of what she did. I know she was working in the factory for a little bit.
She came in and she smoked a cigarette, and so you know that she's evil.
Yeah, but Robert kind of likes that. So he's sneaking away off to her house all the time to basically set up home with her, wasn't he?
He's got her pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Michelle pretends to be...
Michelle did say.
What?
You want a baby? Go and have one with someone else.
Michelle pretends to forgive him, but she secretly vows revenge because they've got a wedding coming up. So
yes, take two.
At the wedding, she humiliates Robert by reading out a load of saucy texts that she's found between him and Vicky instead of vows, which I don't know, arguably better than making up your own vows.
Yeah. That was one of Corrie's few church weddings that they've had in recent years, isn't it?
And that's
so she
why
was there
they're
with the
probably
big dress, they were there with the altar.
Yeah, the altar,
great.
yeah. And that's why they're like, right, no more of this because you messed about. You're not having any more church weddings until you can behave yourself.
And that was a very good affair reveal, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because you're like, what's she doing? What's she saying? It took a while as you were watching for the penny to drop, and you realise that she's reading out these text messages that Robert had been sending back and forth to her.
Don't get very often... There's always something bad that happens at a wedding, but you don't very often get revenge weddings like this. But I do really like it. It's so dramatic and fun.
Well, it was a bit like the revenge wedding of... with Eva and Maria, wasn't it? With the fake
exactly
baby and everything. Yeah.
Vicky goes missing.
Uh-oh.
And everyone thinks Robert might have killed her. which I feel is a bit like closing the door after the horse has bolted. The stable door, not your front door, because the horse shouldn't be in your house. So it's actually a secret plan where Michelle's continuing to mess with Robert's head, and she and Vicky have decided for her to hide.
Yeah, so she fakes her own death, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So what I like.
But then Robert finds out, and then he blackmails Michelle somehow into letting him see
his newly born son.
Okay.
Sonny.
Okay, you wrote belly-born son, and I thought you were making some kind of allusion. No, well, that would be a cesarean section, wouldn't it?
Autocorrect, was it like? Yeah, I remember making fun of the child called Sonny. Sorry if there's any listeners called Sonny, but it was like the most unoriginal name.
He's my son.
What am I going to call my son, Sonny? Exactly.
Well, my nan had a dog called Sonny, so.
But that wasn't your nan's son.
They treated him like. Oh. Okay. Robert is shot on Christmas Day. Oh. And Michelle's like, oh.
Unlike Michelle, he doesn't survive.
No, he definitely
dies. Just bleeds out on the street.
Aki comes and kills him.
Coronation Street's first Christmas Day deaths, him and Derek, wasn't it? Derek, who tumbled from the Helter Skelter. Yeah. But yeah, Derek shot Robert, didn't he? So yeah. Robert was actually the first character to be shot. Or to be killed, to die on Christmas Day, Coronation Street, apart from a kid in the 90s who doesn't
Well, who cares about that? So Robert's lying on the street, and then Aggie comes along, and she's a terrible nurse, so she accidentally kills him.
Yeah,
but Coronation Street covered that up.
Yeah, and they gave her a Golden Art Award for it as well.
Michelle partly blames herself. Because it was
for being so dramatic.
Yeah, she's like, oh man, I thought it was just
follows me round.
I thought it was just fun and games and like recording like vengeful TikToks, but no, people die. So
Robert, to be fair, on Derek was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, wasn't he? Because Derek was in the Rovers,
don't just
holding
blindly
him at
shoot people.
Gunpoint, and he shot out. He turns the gun around and shoots behind him. He didn't know Robert was the other side of the door.
No, well, that's just a Christmas tragedy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Michelle's like, right, I'm leaving. So she sells the bistro, and she leaves Weatherfield and she goes to Dublin, and she accidentally sells it to
Ray Crosby.
What's Perry?
I don't know. It's another autocorrect.
I don't know.
Stop revealing my autocorrect.
You've written Perry Ray Crosby.
Yes.
I'd like it if his first name was secretly Perry and nobody knew.
Can you write that in, Corrie? I don't know. Yeah, so Michelle's off to Dublin. So within the space of a week, we lose Robert and Michelle. Good year.
Vintage year.
Yeah.
So she was announced to be leaving the show all the way at the beginning of the year in February, and then she left.
Yeah, so we knew for all of 2019 that what we'd be seeing play out with this affair storyline, secret double life kind of thing, would be her exit storyline, but we didn't know exactly how it would be. Mm-hmm. And I think that she got a good one. Yeah, maybe I would have preferred it if she had got shot and killed or something, just to make sure she definitely wasn't going to come back. But she was a pretty good actress. They like giving her all the dramatic stuff, and I think she coped with it pretty well. But it's one of those things where not everybody is gonna butter your biscuit. So, and she didn't. She did not butter my biscuit, no.
But I think she did a good job of what she wanted. I really don't want to see Michelle back.
No, but Michelle at the time, Kim Marsh at the time did say it was a possibility. She said, one of her leaving quotes was, "When I was lucky enough to be offered 4 episodes on Coronation Street, I could never in my wildest dreams have thought I'd be here 13 years later. It's been an incredibly difficult decision, but it feels like the right time for me to take a break from the show and explore some other roles. But this isn't the last you've heard of Michelle Connor. She'll be back. I can't wait to see what the writers have in store for the future."
That's a really...
that's a bold...
presumptuous exit.
And quite a lot of other actors who've left the show have said, "Oh yeah, the door's been left open for me."
Back,
but
sure.
Kim's is pretty much like said, "No, I am coming back.
Yeah.
I'm Kim Marsh. I get to decide what I do in the future."
They can't
I
stop
don't
me
know how
from
well
coming
that
back.
works. I know that if you go off on a maternity leave, you can pretty much guarantee to have your place held open for you for whenever you want to come back.
Surely.
Yeah, but I think if you just fancy going off exploring other roles, they're not necessarily bound to it. But
she certainly does. She certainly could come back.
Oh, she's got ties on the street still, hasn't she?
She's still got her son Ryan there, and Steve, obviously her ex-husband. So, and Leanne, her friend / enemy.
Yeah, and Jenny's
Carla,
still a Connor as well.
Her best friend.
There's plenty that could bring Michelle back to the street, but
I just can't think of anything that exciting for her to do.
No, she just had miserable storylines.
But the thing is about Michelle is that it felt like she was kind of defining of an era of Coronation Street that I don't think exists anymore. You know, I just think that everything revolved around her for a long time, and I think that if she was to come back, the whole show would have to change to sort of fit around her, and I kind of like it how it is.
Well, they do like putting particular characters, and usually ladies, into the forefront and just draining them dry until everybody's absolutely sick of them, and that definitely happened to Michelle. And some might say that people like, you know, Abby and Leanne and I guess Summer, even at the moment, it feels like, have almost taken on that role of the leading lady. And she was a strong, bolshy, no nonsense character, and that's what Coronation Street has always been about. But she just rubbed too many people off the wrong way, and she doesn't get called me Michelle by the fans for nothing, really. But I guess we'll have to see if we end up having to re-record another character profiler in the future and sticking it on the end of this and making it an even longer episode than it already is. So be it. But for now, we'll just take a breather and appreciate a Michelle-less Coronation Street, because she's doing some other good stuff, isn't she, Kim Marsh, at the moment? I haven't seen her in too many acting roles. Well, I've not seen her in anything, but I know that she's done quite a lot of presenting. Like,
she did the one crime show. Thing.
Did she do a crime?
Did she not do a crime show?
I don't know.
It was on a channel that we didn't get.
Yes, there was a murder programme, wasn't she? Yes, she was hosting that. She's hosted the one show. She's done Strictly Come Dancing. And apparently she's in the new series of Waterloo Road, because that's getting a revival at the moment. I don't know whether that started yet, but that's going to be probably her first proper big acting gig since Coronation Street. So it doesn't look like she's in any mega rush to go back to Coronation Street anyway. So maybe that's just it. So she left on the 27th of December that year, 1,665 episodes under her belt, and that's up from 1,146, which is how many she had when we first profiled her. So she got another good 500 episodes that we've just whipped through. And currently she is the 34th most featured character in the show's history, which seems like that's really high, isn't it? For when I think back to, you know, was Michelle, did she make much of a blip on Coronation Street's history? I'd kind of be thinking, oh yeah, sometimes they never get rid of her, but I wouldn't say that I was surprised to hear that she has been in it that much. And if you look at the characters that are below her on the list, nobody's going to be overtaking Michelle's episode count for probably at least another 5 years. I think it's like maybe Chesney or Kirk or somebody are the ones that are just below her.
How did she manage that?
Well,
just being in it, I guess being in the Rovers, because she was the landlady for a long time, so being in the Rovers really gets your count up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. If they're going to have stories in there, at least. I don't think Jenny's necessarily seeing all of that. But anyway, that is it. That is Michelle. Not a favourite character, but if you are feeling that you're missing her, then just head on up to Blackpool Madame Two Swords, because they've got a waxwork of her, haven't they?
Yes.
You can go and
see her and Jack.
See her, and it'll be just like old times again.
Yep.
But that's it for now. Thank you everyone for listening. Sorry if you're a Michelle Connor fan and you've kind of sat gritting your teeth all the way through this while we've kind of taken the mickey out of her. You do a character profile of a character that we really like and slag them off.
Yeah.
You go for it. It's up to you. It's a free country, free internet. And but for now, I think we'll end it. So thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.